Naomi's world was still tender and bruised from her mother's unexpected death when her father introduced Helena as his new wife. The marriage, coming merely months after her mother's funeral, left Naomi reeling in a vortex of grief and disbelief. Helena entered their lives like a storm, quick to establish her dominion over the household. Her presence was imposing, her decisions firm, and her smile rarely reached her eyes, giving Naomi an uneasy feeling whenever their paths crossed in the echoing halls of their once joyful home. Helena's interactions with Naomi were cordial but cold, lacking the warmth she freely bestowed upon her own children, Victor and Anna, who eyed Naomi with thinly veiled disdain. Helena's true nature began to reveal itself in subtle yet unmistakable waves. The house rules changed swiftly. What was once a sanctuary became a rigid regime under Helena's scrutiny. Naomi's favorite dinner dishes disappeared from the menu, replaced by meals she detested, a clear signal that there was a new authority to reckon with. Her father, perhaps in his own swirling pit of grief and longing for companionship, seemed oblivious to the shifting currents, laughing a little too loudly at Helena's dry jokes, and agreeing a little too quickly to her stringent suggestions. Naomi felt a pang of loss each night as she climbed the stairs to her room, her father's distant laughter a reminder of the widening gap between them. As days turned into weeks, Naomi's attempts to bond with Helena or even engage her father in meaningful conversation dwindled. She would often find herself staring at the closed door of their home office where Helena and her father spent hours discussing matters she was no longer privy to. The photographs of her mother that once graced the living room were subtly moved to less prominent positions, each displacement a sharp sting in Naomi's heart. In the quiet of her room, surrounded by the lingering scent of her mother's perfume, Naomi clung to the memories of better times, fearful of the growing shadow Helena cast over her life. Helena's indifference towards Naomi soon morphed into palpable disdain, as if the mere sight of her was a blemish on her perfect new family portrait. Breakfasts were silent affairs, with Helena chatting animatedly with Victor and Anna about their days ahead, while Naomi's presence was acknowledged with a mere nod or a passing glance. The difference in treatment was stark and cruel. Helena's children were showered with new clothes, gadgets, and praises, their laughter echoing through the halls, a constant reminder of Naomi's isolation. Their needs and wants were tended to with meticulous attention, while Naomi found her requests for even the simplest necessities, like new schoolbooks or a hairbrush, met with dismissive sighs or forgotten promises. Naomi's room, once a sanctuary filled with her mother's love and warmth, became a stark, lonely corner of the house. The vibrant paint on the walls seemed to dull, and the air felt thicker. Her bed, where she had once laid with her mother, reading stories and sharing dreams, now felt too large and too empty. The contrast of her life before and after Helena was like two different worlds, and Naomi, trapped in the latter, struggled to find her footing. Her friends began to drift away, sensing the change in her life, their invitations becoming less frequent as her excuses piled up. Naomi's world, once filled with color and laughter, had dimmed, leaving her grappling with a sorrow too heavy for her young shoulders. At school, Naomi's bright, inquisitive nature began to wane, her grades slipped, and her teachers' concerned glances went unheeded. She returned home each day to the cold, meticulous order that Helena had imposed, where every laughter seemed forced and every gesture scrutinized. The dinner table became a battlefield of subtle glances and unspoken words, with Naomi often excused early, leaving her to wander the empty corridors of her home. In her heart, where warmth once resided, a cold seed of resentment began to sprout. Each night, as she lay in bed, Naomi yearned for her late mother's embrace, her soul aching for the love and acceptance that had been so cruelly snatched away by fate and Helena's cold indifference. Helena's regime in the household solidified with each passing day, her manipulative tendrils weaving through the very fabric of Naomi's existence. It wasn't long before Naomi's role within her own home began to diminish from that of a daughter to something akin to a live-in servant. Helena's commands were sharp and her expectations high. Naomi found herself waking earlier each morning to start the laundry, prepare breakfast, and get everything in order before Helena's scrutinizing inspection. The chores were relentless, and Naomi's hands, once used to holding books and pencils, now bore the brunt of harsh cleaning agents and the scalding water of the kitchen sink. School became a distant memory as Helena fabricated a flimsy excuse about financial constraints, claiming it was no longer feasible to afford Naomi's education. This blatant lie locked the doors of opportunity for Naomi, leaving her trapped within the confining walls of her home. However, her spirit, though battered, flickered with defiance. Under the cover of darkness, when the house lay silent and Helena's watchful eyes closed in sleep, Naomi would light a small candle in the secrecy of her room and pore over the books Mrs. Clara, her elderly neighbor, had secretly lent her. Each page turned was a silent protest, each word absorbed a spark towards the future she dared to dream of. Helena's surveillance tightened as she sensed Naomi's subtle acts of rebellion, her eyes narrowing with suspicion at Naomi's tired yet determined demeanor. Accusations and criticisms became more frequent, and Naomi bore them with a quiet dignity, her mother's gentle voice in her memories urging her to hold on. The books hidden under her mattress were her lifeline, each story a window to a world beyond her current confines. Naomi's nights became her sanctuary of learning, the candlelight her beacon of hope as she clung to her dreams with a tenacity born of desperation. The disparity between Naomi's life and that of Helena's children, who continued their education uninterrupted, gnawed at her with every passing day. Victor and Anna's casual complaints about homework and teachers were a stark reminder of what Naomi was being denied. Yet, she resolved to learn in the shadows, her heart swelling with a silent promise to herself and the memory of her mother. No matter how heavy the chains, she would not let Helena's cruelty define her destiny. Naomi's relationship with her father, once a source of joy and security, deteriorated as Helena's influence over him grew stronger. Her father's eyes, which used to sparkle with kindness and love whenever he looked at her, now often avoided hers, clouded with an indefinable guilt that he seemed unable to confront. Naomi tried repeatedly to bridge the growing chasm between them, seeking moments to remind him of the bond they once shared. She attempted to engage him during the rare times they were alone, recounting her day or asking about his, but her words seemed to dissipate like mist, leaving no impression on him. Helena, ever the astute manipulator, noticed Naomi's attempts and tightened her grip, ensuring she was always by her husband's side, steering his perceptions and responses. Naomi watched, heartbroken, as her father nodded along to Helena's narratives, accepting her version of events without question. This abandonment by her father compounded Naomi's loneliness, making the spacious rooms of their home feel increasingly like a prison. Each night, as she heard the muffled sounds of their laughter from the dining room where she was no longer welcome, Naomi felt a piece of her childhood slip further away. The few times Naomi tried to express her unhappiness or her longing for the past, her father's response was a complex mix of discomfort and dismissal. "Helena is trying her best, you need to give her a chance," he would say, parroting Helena's words, his voice devoid of the warmth it once carried. Naomi realized that her father, perhaps subconsciously, had chosen the easier path of compliance over the tumultuous road of defending his daughter. The realization that she was effectively alone in her struggle was a bitter pill to swallow, forcing her to harden her resolve to survive Helena's regime, relying solely on the strength she inherited from her mother. In the midst of her turmoil, Naomi found an unexpected ally in Mrs. Clara, the elderly neighbor who had known her family since Naomi was a baby. Mrs. Clara had watched Naomi grow and had also observed the recent changes in the household dynamics. With a mix of concern and maternal affection, Mrs. Clara reached out to Naomi, inviting her over under the guise of needing help with chores. These visits quickly became Naomi's refuge, a place where she could be herself, shed her guarded exterior, and receive the nurturing she desperately missed. Mrs. Clara was wise and kind, her small, cozy kitchen a stark contrast to the immaculate, sterile environment of Naomi's home. Over cups of warm tea and freshly baked cookies, she offered Naomi advice, comfort, and most importantly, books. Mrs. Clara's own daughter had left behind a collection of novels and textbooks, which she now passed on to Naomi, recognizing her thirst for knowledge and understanding her situation more than Naomi realized. "Knowledge is freedom," Mrs. Clara would say, her eyes twinkling, "and no one can lock up your mind." These books became Naomi's treasure, her escape from the harsh reality of her existence. She hid them under loose floorboards in her room, a secret library that she visited every night. Mrs. Clara also taught Naomi about different plants and herbs, sharing wisdom on their medicinal properties, which Naomi catalogued meticulously in a notebook, dreaming of the day she might use this knowledge to forge a new path for herself. Each visit to Mrs. Clara's house planted seeds of hope and resilience in Naomi's heart, nurturing a budding belief that she could change her circumstances. As the months passed, Helena's greed seemed to know no bounds. She discovered Naomi's talent for embroidery, a skill Naomi had learned from her mother and perfected in secret. Helena wasted no time exploiting this, forcing Naomi to spend long nights stitching intricate designs that Helena sold at exorbitant prices. The beautiful patterns that once brought Naomi solace now became symbols of her enslavement, each stitch a reminder of her stepmother's control. Helena presented Naomi's work as her own, gaining praise and profit from high society ladies who marveled at the craftsmanship. Naomi received none of the profits, only harsh critiques and relentless demands for more work. Her hands, once nimble and careful, grew calloused and tired, but she continued, knowing that defiance could result in even harsher penalties. The secret payments Helena received were funneled into lavish treats for Victor and Anna, further deepening the divide in the household. Despite the exploitation, embroidery became Naomi's silent rebellion. With each piece, she stitched a part of her story, encoding her hopes and dreams into the very fabric that Helena commodified. This quiet act of defiance kept Naomi's spirit alive, her creative designs a testament to her resilience and her determination to retain something of herself amid the oppression. She imagined her future with each thread, a future where her art could be a source of joy and liberation rather than captivity. Tensions in the household escalated when Victor and Anna, emboldened by their mother's favoritism, began to concoct malicious schemes against Naomi. Their jealousy of Naomi's undisputed talent in embroidery, which despite being exploited was gaining attention, spurred them to action. They planted a valuable necklace in Naomi's room, one that Helena had ostentatiously shown off at a recent gathering, and then feigned its discovery. Helena's fury was immediate and brutal. With calculated tears, Victor and Anna spun a tale of Naomi's supposed jealousy and theft, painting her as a threat to the family's reputation. Helena seized on this excuse with a vicious satisfaction, seeing it as the perfect opportunity to rid herself of Naomi once and for all. She began to plot in earnest, her mind whirring with plans that would permanently remove Naomi from her life and secure her position within the household. Naomi, unaware of the depths of their treachery but sensing the increase in hostility, tried to defend herself, but her protests fell on deaf ears. Her father, ever more distant, refused to meet her eyes, swallowed up by Helena's narrative. The home that once held laughter and love now seemed to close in on her, the walls whispering of betrayal and impending doom. Naomi, isolated and scared, found herself preparing for the worst, clinging to her memories of her mother's strength and the lessons from Mrs. Clara as she faced the storm brewing against her. The culmination of Helena's cruel intentions came swiftly and devastatingly. She arranged for Naomi to be sent away under the pretense of finding her a position as a governess, a lie laced with enough truth to convince her father. Naomi, desperate for any semblance of a future and hopeful that perhaps this was an opportunity to escape Helena's grasp, packed her few belongings with a trembling heart. However, the reality of her situation became horrifically clear when she was handed over not to a family, but to a group of men known for their dealings in the slave trade. The realization that she had been sold into slavery by her own stepmother shattered Naomi. The journey to the remote farm where she was to work was long and fraught with fear. Each mile that separated her from her hometown severed the last tendrils of hope she clung to. Arriving at her grim new reality, Naomi was stripped of her belongings, her identity, and her freedom, forced to work under the harshest conditions, her days long and filled with backbreaking labor. Despite the despair that threatened to drown her, Naomi's resolve did not break. She remembered the stories she had read, the silent promises she had made to herself, and the strength her mother had instilled in her. These memories and vows became the armor she wore each day, protecting her spirit from the cruelty of her captors. Naomi vowed to survive, to someday return and confront the woman who had betrayed her so deeply. But first, she had to endure, and endurance meant harnessing all the resilience she could muster. In the depths of her servitude, Naomi found herself more alone than ever. Removed from the familiarity of her hometown and the few allies she had, she was thrust into an environment where trust was a luxury she could not afford. The harsh conditions of her work left little room for camaraderie, as everyone around her struggled to survive the cruelty of their captors. Naomi's days became a blur of exhaustion and pain, each night a test of her will to continue. However, even in these darkest times, Naomi's mind remained a sanctuary of hope. She recalled every lesson from Mrs. Clara, every story she had read about triumph over adversity, and she held on to the belief that this was not the end of her story. She observed everything around her, learning the routines and weaknesses of the place, plotting her escape with every small detail she gathered. Naomi knew that her body was trapped, but her mind remained free, a weapon she honed with thoughts of revenge and freedom. As days turned into weeks, Naomi's physical strength waned but her mental resolve hardened. She began to connect with others, whispering words of encouragement and sharing her plans in hushed tones under the cover of darkness. In the faces of her fellow slaves, she saw reflections of her own fear and determination, and a bond formed in the mutual recognition of their shared plight. Naomi became a quiet leader, a beacon of strength to those who had none left, her resolve an unspoken promise to lead not only herself but also others to freedom. Naomi's life as a slave was marked by the grueling reality of her day-to-day existence. Her hands, once delicate and nimble, were now rough and scarred from the relentless labor. The work was dehumanizing, the overseers ruthless. Yet, Naomi's spirit, fueled by the injustice of her situation, refused to be broken. She drew on the memories of her mother's warmth and the strength she had gained from her late nights of reading and learning in secret. These memories were her sanctuary, her reminder that she was not defined by her current conditions. Nighttime was the hardest, when the physical exhaustion of the day waned and the emotional pain surged forth. It was during these dark hours that Naomi allowed herself to feel the full weight of her sorrow and anger. Yet, it was also at night that her resolve solidified. Under the cover of darkness, she planned her escape meticulously, understanding that her body could only withstand so much before it gave out. Naomi knew she needed to act soon if she was to have any chance of survival. Drawing on the resilience she had nurtured through years of hardship, Naomi became a source of hope for her fellow slaves. She shared her plans quietly, her leadership giving others the courage to believe in a future beyond their brutal reality. Together, they began to see Naomi not just as a fellow sufferer, but as a beacon of light in the overwhelming darkness. Her resolve to escape and take as many with her as possible grew with each passing day, each plan carefully crafted to avoid detection. Naomi's memories of her mother's love, Mrs. Clara's teachings, and the dreams she had clung to during her darkest moments became the pillars of her strength. As she faced each day, she did so with a quiet courage, her heart fueled by the burning desire to reclaim her freedom and confront those who had wronged her. The darkness of her current life was profound, but Naomi's spirit, illuminated by her past and her hopes for the future, shone brighter. She was ready to fight, to escape, and to eventually return to face Helena, not as a broken victim, but as a survivor empowered by her trials. As Naomi struggled with the harsh realities of her enslaved life, she found an unexpected ally in Miriam, a fellow worker whose spirit seemed unbroken by their grim circumstances. Miriam had been at the farm for several years and had learned not only how to survive but also how to keep a small part of herself free from the despair that engulfed many others. She noticed Naomi's resilience and approached her with a mix of caution and hope, recognizing a kindred spirit when she saw one. Miriam taught Naomi how to navigate the complex social hierarchy among the slaves and the overseers, sharing strategies for avoiding punishment and gaining small favors. Their whispered conversations during their scant moments of rest became Naomi's new lessons, each piece of advice a lifeline thrown in a stormy sea. Miriam also shared her scant rations with Naomi, knowing that physical strength was essential for both their bodies and spirits to withstand the ordeal. The bond between Naomi and Miriam grew with each passing day, rooted in mutual respect and bolstered by their shared hope for freedom. Miriam's tales of escape attempts, both failed and successful, painted a stark picture of their reality but also mapped out possible paths to liberation. For Naomi, Miriam became more than an ally, she became the embodiment of the human spirit's endurance, a living proof that even in the darkest times, hope can flourish. Naomi's adaptation to her surroundings, guided by Miriam's wisdom, was marked by her growing resilience. She learned to conserve her energy, to be observant, and to anticipate the overseer's demands before they were spoken. This not only helped her avoid their wrath but also allowed her to gain their begrudging respect, which sometimes resulted in less grueling tasks. Her nights, once consumed by despair, now hosted silent planning sessions for her escape. Her resolve hardened with each day's labor, each night's planning. Naomi began to see the farm not just as a prison but as a puzzle, each piece holding potential keys to her freedom. She took note of the delivery schedules, the shifts of the guards, and the layout of the land. Her mind, sharpened by years of reading and learning, worked tirelessly to devise a plan that could succeed. Naomi's leadership qualities, honed under the harsh conditions, began to shine. Other slaves started looking to her for guidance, and she took on this role with a solemn sense of responsibility. She organized small, secret meetings with a trusted few, laying the groundwork for an escape plan that could potentially free not just her but several others. Her ability to inspire hope in others, to turn despair into action, became her most powerful tool. One day, a merchant came to the farm to trade and noticed the exquisite embroidery on some of the items Naomi had created in her scarce free time. Recognizing her talent, he saw an opportunity for both of them. He proposed a secret arrangement where Naomi would make special pieces for him to sell at high prices in the city markets. In return, Naomi would receive a small cut of the profits, money she could use to fund her escape. Naomi seized this opportunity with both hands, her nights now filled with the dual tasks of planning her freedom and embroidering pieces that held the essence of her dreams woven into their designs. The merchant was true to his word, and slowly, Naomi began to amass a small stash of coins, carefully hidden and fiercely guarded. This secret work gave Naomi a new sense of purpose and a tangible means to an end. It also reinforced her belief in her own abilities, in the possibility that her skills could indeed be her salvation. The merchant, impressed by the quality and beauty of her work, became an unwitting ally in her quest for freedom, providing her with a connection to the outside world and the means to eventually escape it. With her plans meticulously laid and her funds secretly secured, Naomi chose a moonless night to make her move. Miriam, ever the staunch ally, played a crucial part, creating a diversion that drew the overseer's attention away from the women's quarters. Naomi, along with 3 other slaves she had sworn to take with her, slipped away under the cover of darkness, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The escape was fraught with peril, the route out of the farm treacherous and unfamiliar in the dark. But Naomi's planning paid off. They avoided the main roads, using the natural cover of the woods and moving silently, communicating with hand signals they had rehearsed countless times. Every rustle of the leaves felt like a call to danger, but Naomi's determination propelled them forward, her mind fixed on the image of freedom. After hours of tense navigation, as the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon, they finally reached the outskirts of a small town. The relief of having made it so far was palpable among them, but Naomi knew they were not safe yet. The real journey, their journey to true freedom, was just beginning. Naomi and her companions entered the bustling city at dawn, the streets slowly coming to life as they walked among the early risers. The city was a maze of opportunities and dangers, a place where a new beginning was possible, but only if they navigated it wisely. Naomi used the last of her money to secure a small room where they could regroup and plan their next steps. Finding work was imperative. Naomi leveraged the only skill she had that didn't require references or a past she could openly discuss, her embroidery. She started taking on small sewing jobs, from mending clothes to creating simple but beautiful designs for local vendors. Each stitch helped to build her new life, thread by thread. The city, with its anonymity and bustling crowds, offered Naomi a cloak of invisibility that she used to her advantage. She learned to blend in, to be just another face in the crowd, while her mind remained alert, always watching for any signs that her past might have followed her. Her interactions were cautious, her friendships measured, but slowly, she began to build a network of acquaintances who valued her skills and offered her more work. One day, while selling her embroidery at a market, Naomi caught the attention of Mr. Peterson, a wealthy businessman known for his philanthropic endeavors and his keen eye for art. He was impressed by the intricacy and originality of Naomi's designs and struck by her demeanor, which hinted at depths of character forged by experiences far beyond what her young age should have known. Mr. Peterson engaged her in conversation, gently probing about her background without delving too deeply into sensitive areas. Sensing a kindred spirit and a potential talent that could be nurtured, he offered Naomi a position in his company, designing textiles. This was not just a job, it was a chance to enter a world where her artistic abilities could be celebrated and expanded. Grateful and aware of the rare opportunity Mr. Peterson was offering, Naomi accepted. She entered a new phase of her life, working in an environment where her contributions were valued and her talent recognized. Mr. Peterson became not just her employer but her mentor, guiding her with a gentle hand, encouraging her to develop her designs, and introducing her to the nuances of the business world. Under Mr. Peterson's guidance, Naomi thrived. Her designs became a signature part of the company's offerings, admired for their beauty and uniqueness. As she grew more confident in her role, she also began to save diligently, her dreams now expanding to include starting her own business one day. Naomi's work ethic and creativity drew the respect of her colleagues and the admiration of her clients. Her life in the city allowed her to blend her past experiences with her present ambitions, using each challenge she had overcome as a stepping stone towards her future. She worked tirelessly, fueled by the memory of her days of servitude and the knowledge that her success was not just for herself but a tribute to those who had helped her along the way. The transformation from a slave to a respected designer was not just a change in circumstances but a profound evolution of Naomi's identity. She learned to negotiate, to manage finances, and to advocate for herself and her ideas. Mr. Peterson's belief in her abilities and his unwavering support gave her the foundation she needed to dream bigger than she had ever dared. Naomi's new life was not without its trials. The news of Miriam's death reached her one cold morning, delivered by a former fellow slave who had also escaped and found his way to the city. Miriam had succumbed to the lingering effects of her harsh treatment at the farm, her body worn out after years of toil. The news struck Naomi with profound sorrow, casting a shadow over her recent successes. Determined to honor the woman who had been like a guardian angel to her, Naomi dedicated her first major independent project to Miriam's memory. It was an intricate tapestry, rich with symbols of freedom and resilience, a piece so powerful in its storytelling that it caught the attention of the city's cultural elite. This project not only served as a tribute but also solidified Naomi's reputation as an artist of extraordinary depth and skill. The loss of Miriam was a stark reminder of the prices paid along the way, the sacrifices that allowed Naomi to reach where she was. It fueled her desire to give back, to extend help to those who were still bound by circumstances like her own had once been. Naomi vowed to use her growing influence and resources to make a difference, turning her personal grief into a public benefit. With each passing year, Naomi's business grew, her brand becoming synonymous with luxury and craftsmanship. Her success was not just in the beauty of her creations but in her approach to business, ethical, compassionate, and forward-thinking. Naomi hired other women who had escaped difficult pasts, training them in her craft and providing them with a supportive work environment that was starkly different from the exploitation she had endured. Her success story became well known, a tale of overcoming insurmountable odds to achieve greatness in both art and life. Naomi's commitment to her employees and her community earned her widespread respect and admiration. She became a role model, particularly for young women, proving that with talent, determination, and a willingness to help others, it was possible to rewrite one's destiny. Naomi's designs were featured in high-profile fashion shows and won her numerous awards, but she remained humble, always aware that her journey had started from a place of profound adversity. She used her platform to advocate for workers' rights and to support charities that helped women escape abusive situations. Her life had become a testament to the power of resilience and the impact of second chances. Naomi's rise to prominence in the design world culminated in her being named one of the top entrepreneurs of the year. The recognition came with both accolades and opportunities to expand her influence further. Naomi leveraged this platform to launch new initiatives, including a scholarship program for young artists and a fund to support small women-led businesses. Her story inspired countless others, her workshops and talks a beacon for those seeking to learn from her experience. Naomi's presence in the industry changed the narrative around success. It was not just about what one achieved, but how one achieved it and who they helped along the way. As her business flourished, Naomi made it a point to remain connected to her roots. She visited schools and workshops, sharing her story and encouraging others to dream big and work hard. Her life, once a tale of suffering and survival, had become a narrative of success, mentorship, and community leadership. Naomi's impact was profound, not just in the beauty she created but in the lives she touched. Naomi, now a distinguished and wealthy entrepreneur, decided it was time to confront her past and the town that shaped her early years. The emotional gravity of her mother's untimely death and the subsequent torment at the hands of her stepmother, Helena, had left a mark on her soul that success alone could not erase. Naomi's journey back wasn't just a physical return but a crucial step in reclaiming her narrative and confronting the ghosts that still haunted her. She crafted a new identity for this visit, presenting herself as a consultant involved in regional development, thus allowing her to observe and interact without the weight of her past identity clouding people's perceptions. As she walked the familiar streets, every landmark seemed to echo with the memories of her youth. The old bakery where she had spent many afternoons staring longingly at sweets she could never afford, the rugged path leading to her school where she had trudged with a mix of dread and determination, the quaint park where she had once played carefree before the complexities of her family life had robbed her of innocence. Each sight was a testament to her trials and her triumphs, a mosaic of pain and perseverance. Naomi absorbed these sights, her heart heavy with nostalgia and fortified by her accomplishments, which now offered her a lens of empowerment rather than victimhood. This return was more than a visit, it was a pilgrimage to the roots of her suffering and success. Naomi needed to stitch together the pieces of her childhood with the reality of her adult achievements to fully understand and appreciate the depth of her own resilience. Observing her old home, the epicenter of her past misery, now dilapidated and reflecting the downfall of Helena's fortune, she felt a complex amalgamation of triumph and sorrow. Her past and present were colliding, and this journey was essential in helping her navigate her future, no longer as a victim, but as a victor who had transcended her origins. Helena, once the formidable matriarch of Naomi's childhood home, had experienced a dramatic fall from grace. The opulence and control she once wielded were now just shadows flitting through the crumbling halls of her mansion. Her health had declined rapidly, exacerbated by stress and isolation, a direct result of her manipulative and cruel past behaviors. As her physical strength waned, so did her financial stability, with poor investments and lavish spending having eroded much of the wealth she had so ruthlessly accumulated. The townspeople, once either enamored or fearful of her, now looked upon Helena with a mixture of pity and disdain, a social pariah brought low by her own misdeeds. Helena's children, Victor and Anna, were living testimonies to the failure of their upbringing. Lacking the resilience and ingenuity that Naomi had been forced to develop, they floundered in the real world, unable to replicate their mother's success or maintain the facade of affluence. The family, which had once presented a united front of superiority and untouchability, was now riddled with internal strife and financial despair. Legal troubles stemming from Helena's past business dealings were the final nails in the coffin, stripping the family of their last vestiges of dignity and security. Naomi observed all this from her position within the household, her identity still concealed. Witnessing Helena's decline firsthand evoked a complex cocktail of emotions within her. There was an undeniable sense of poetic justice in seeing Helena defeated by her own actions, yet Naomi also recognized the hollow satisfaction that came with it. The realization that her former tormentor was now a broken old woman, dependent on the kindness of the very daughter she had mistreated, stirred a deep and unexpected empathy within Naomi. This emotional conflict challenged her perceptions of justice and revenge, reshaping her understanding of strength and forgiveness. Taking up the role of a maid within Helena's household, Naomi immersed herself in the day-to-day activities of her once torturous home. This role provided her with an intimate viewpoint on Helena's current life and allowed Naomi to interact with her stepmother in a way she never had before. Performing her duties with quiet efficiency, Naomi watched as Helena, now frail and often confused, struggled with the complexities of her rapidly shrinking world. The irony of the situation was not lost on Naomi. She, who had once been at the mercy of this woman's cruelty, was now one of her caretakers, observing her in her most vulnerable state. This unique position gave Naomi a profound insight into the human condition, witnessing firsthand the impact of time and karma on a person's psyche. Helena, who had once been a figure of absolute authority and fear in Naomi's life, was now reduced to a shadow of her former self, her days marked by medications and doctor's visits, her nights filled with the ghosts of her past actions. Naomi's daily observations became lessons in forgiveness and the complexities of human relationships, challenging her to reconsider her long-held grudges and the energy they consumed. Through this silent observation, Naomi also saw glimpses of the woman Helena might have been, flashes of charm, wit, and intelligence that peeked through her otherwise dominant traits of manipulation and harshness. These moments, though fleeting, highlighted the tragedy of potential corrupted by flawed choices and provided Naomi with a deeper understanding of the nature of personal demons and the paths they can lead us down. Despite the bitterness of their shared history, Naomi found herself extending small acts of kindness towards Helena. She would often spend extra time preparing Helena's meals, ensuring they were not only nutritious but also more appealing, understanding how the small pleasures of a well-cooked dish could brighten the dreariness of Helena's days. Naomi also took it upon herself to reorganize the medication schedule to ensure that Helena received her treatments at the optimal times, reducing discomfort and improving efficacy. These acts, though minor in effort, were monumental in their emotional significance, representing Naomi's choice to rise above the pettiness of revenge. This decision to be kind was not born out of a desire for recognition or a late-blooming affection for Helena, but rather from Naomi's deep-seated belief in dignity and compassion, qualities that had sustained her through her darkest times. Each act of kindness was a step towards healing herself, a way to reaffirm her identity not just as a survivor but as someone who transcends her past traumas to interact with the world on her own terms. Helena, for her part, remained largely oblivious to the identity of the new maid, too caught up in her own declining health and dwindling fortunes. However, the improvements in her daily care did not go unnoticed, and on her clearer days, she expressed a grudging gratitude towards Naomi, unaware of the profound irony of her thanks. These moments, though complex, were cathartic for Naomi, allowing her to process and release the residual anger and pain from her childhood. Helena's illness soon escalated to a critical point, requiring more than just routine care. She needed a kidney transplant to survive. The diagnosis came as a stark reminder of the fragility of life, even for those who once seemed invincible. The search for a suitable donor proved to be difficult, with both Victor and Anna unable to donate due to medical and personal reasons. This dire medical crisis highlighted the consequences of Helena's isolated life. Her once extensive network of friends and allies had dwindled to nothing, leaving her dependent on the very family she had manipulated and controlled. Naomi watched as the family grappled with this new reality, their desperation palpable. The irony of Naomi now being in a position to save the woman who had once made her life a living hell was not lost on her. It forced Naomi to confront her feelings about family, forgiveness, and the ties that bind us, regardless of our past grievances. The decision to help Helena was complex, laden with emotional and ethical dilemmas that tested Naomi's character and her commitment to her principles of kindness and humanity. After much contemplation, Naomi chose to volunteer for compatibility testing, a decision that echoed her deep-seated values of compassion over retribution. The testing process was thorough, and the results confirmed that Naomi was a perfect match, a twist of fate that felt like the universe's own commentary on their tangled histories. Naomi's decision to go through with the donation was driven by a profound sense of closure and healing that she sought for both herself and Helena. This act of donating a kidney, of literally giving a part of herself to save her tormentor, was a testament to Naomi's incredible strength and maturity. It was a choice that transcended the usual responses to injury and abuse, highlighting a path of extraordinary forgiveness and humanitarianism that few could tread. Naomi saw this not just as an opportunity to save Helena but as a chance to liberate herself from the final chains of hatred and bitterness that had lingered from her past. During the preoperative preparations, a startling discovery was made through routine genetic testing. Naomi was Helena's biological daughter. The revelation was shocking, reshaping the narrative of Naomi's past and her understanding of Helena's motives. This news brought with it a torrent of new questions and emotions, forcing Naomi to reevaluate the very foundation of her identity and her past perceptions. The realization that Helena had knowingly inflicted such cruelty on her own daughter added layers of complexity to Naomi's feelings towards Helena. It challenged her to delve deeper into the realms of forgiveness and understanding, pushing her to consider the circumstances and psychological patterns that might have led Helena to such extreme actions. Armed with the truth, Naomi confronted Helena in a poignant and charged exchange that unraveled years of secrets and lies. Helena, faced with the undeniable truth and the proximity of her mortality, broke down and confessed her actions and motives. She spoke of her insecurities, her fears of losing her husband's affection, and her desperate acts to secure her position in the family, which included deceiving Naomi about her parentage and ultimately discarding her. This confrontation was a cathartic moment for both women, fraught with emotional intensity and raw honesty. Naomi listened, her heart heavy with the weight of the revelations, as she struggled to reconcile the woman before her with the monster of her nightmares. The dialogue opened pathways to understanding and, potentially, healing, as both women faced the truths that had shaped their lives. In the aftermath of their confrontation, Naomi and Helena were left to reflect on the profound revelations and their implications. Helena, now painfully aware of the depth of her wrongdoings, was consumed by remorse and the fear of her imminent death without reconciliation. Naomi, meanwhile, found herself in a vortex of conflicting emotions: anger, sadness, empathy, and an unexpected surge of familial bond. This period of reflection was crucial for Naomi, allowing her to process the myriad emotions and decide how to move forward. It was a time of introspective examination, where Naomi considered the impact of her decisions not only on her own life but also on the legacy she intended to leave behind. Her deep commitment to her principles was tested, and she emerged with a renewed understanding of her own strength and the transformative power of forgiveness. Ultimately, Naomi's decision to proceed with the kidney transplant was a defining moment in her journey. It was an act of incredible generosity and forgiveness, emblematic of her profound personal growth and her commitment to higher principles. The successful transplant was not just a medical procedure, it was a metaphorical healing of the wounds that had marred both their lives, offering a chance for redemption and new beginnings. The impact of Naomi's decision reverberated through the family, bringing a new understanding and a tentative peace. Helena, profoundly affected by Naomi's forgiveness, began to make amends, however late in the day. Naomi, for her part, found a deeper peace, having acted in accordance with her values and having faced her past with courage and compassion. The transplant, thus, became not just a gift of life for Helena but a pivotal act of liberation for Naomi, freeing her from the shackles of her past and affirming her path towards a future built on forgiveness, resilience, and unconditional love. Post-surgery, Helena faced a long and difficult recovery, both physically and emotionally. The gravity of Naomi's gift began to profoundly reshape her worldview. Confined to her bed, with time to reflect on the decades of manipulative and destructive behavior, Helena found herself grappling with deep remorse and the need for atonement. This period of convalescence forced her to confront the harsh truth of her loneliness and the direct consequences of her actions on her family and herself. As Naomi visited regularly, ensuring Helena's care was optimal, their interactions, initially marked by an awkward formality, gradually became spaces for more meaningful exchanges. Helena used these moments to express her gratitude and to voice her newfound realizations about the past. Each conversation with Naomi, filled with revelations and admissions, became a step towards Helena's emotional redemption. She began to understand the depth of the pain she had inflicted, not only on Naomi but on the entire family, and this understanding brought with it an overwhelming sense of guilt but also a desire to make amends. These discussions were not easy for Naomi. Each visit tested her resolve and compassion, challenging her to engage with the woman who had once made her life unbearable. However, seeing Helena's genuine remorse and witnessing her struggle with the repercussions of her own actions fostered a complex but growing sense of empathy within Naomi. This transformative period not only changed Helena but also solidified Naomi's role as a healer in her own right, one who could extend forgiveness and facilitate the healing of deep, old wounds. With her personal journey towards forgiveness well underway, Naomi felt a renewed commitment to helping others who had faced similar adversities. Inspired by her own experiences, she founded a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting survivors of family abuse and neglect. The foundation offered counseling, legal aid, and educational programs designed to empower individuals to rebuild their lives and break the cycle of abuse. Naomi threw herself into the work, driven by a passion fueled by her past pains and her desire to prevent similar suffering in others. The foundation quickly grew, drawing attention and support from various sectors of society, impressed by Naomi's story and her dedication to such a critical cause. She became a noted public figure in the realm of social change, her speeches and interviews inspiring countless others. Her work, however, was more than just a mission, it was a personal crusade. Each success story from the foundation reminded her of her own journey and reinforced the importance of compassion and resilience. Naomi used her platform to advocate for systemic changes in how society handles abuse and recovery, ensuring that the foundation's work also addressed the root causes of abuse and sought preventative measures. One of the most challenging aspects of Naomi's healing process involved reconciling with her father, who had been a passive participant in her early suffering. Their relationship had been strained at best, severed at worst. However, as Naomi navigated her own journey of forgiveness, she recognized the importance of addressing and potentially healing this familial bond. She approached their reconciliation cautiously, arranging initial meetings that were structured more like formal interviews than family gatherings. Each session was emotionally charged, with both parties tentatively probing the depths of decades-long misunderstandings and hurt. Naomi's father, overwhelmed by guilt and regret, struggled to articulate his feelings, often overwhelmed by the impact of his past decisions on his daughter's life. Over time, these meetings became more fluid and open. Naomi and her father shared not just past grievances but also current experiences and aspirations. This slow but steady dialogue helped to bridge the vast emotional gulf that had separated them, allowing for a new understanding and appreciation of each other's life stories. Naomi learned to see her father not just as the man who had failed her but as a fellow human being grappling with his own regrets and seeking redemption. Helena's decision to publicly apologize marked a significant turning point in her journey towards redemption. The event was carefully planned, not as a spectacle but as a sincere attempt to acknowledge her wrongdoings and to seek forgiveness from those she had hurt. Helena addressed a crowded room, her voice steady but filled with emotion, as she recounted her actions and their impact on her family and community. The apology was well received, stirring a mix of responses from the audience. Some were moved by her sincerity, others skeptical of her motives, but all were captivated by the drama of her confession. This public act of contrition was crucial for Helena. It was her way of reclaiming her dignity and attempting to repair the social fabric she had once torn apart. For Naomi, witnessing her stepmother's public acknowledgement of her faults was both vindicating and healing. It reinforced the complexity of human relationships and the potential for change, even in those deemed most unlikely to seek it. Helena's apology also served as a closure of sorts for Naomi, providing a formal acknowledgement of the pain caused and a clear declaration of intent to do better. The gradual healing of Naomi's family was marked by small, everyday moments of forgiveness and reconnection. The public apology served as a catalyst for deeper personal reconciliations. Naomi's siblings, Victor and Anna, who had their own journeys of redemption, began to reach out, seeking to understand and to be understood. Family gatherings, once tense and fraught with silent grievances, slowly transformed into genuine reunions. Laughter began to replace the awkward silences, and shared memories were recounted not with bitterness but with a new sense of camaraderie. Naomi, once the victim, now stood as the matriarch, guiding her family through their collective healing with grace and patience. These reunions were not without their challenges. Old wounds occasionally resurfaced, threatening the fragile peace. However, Naomi's commitment to fostering a healthy family dynamic helped navigate these difficulties. She encouraged open communication, insisted on respect and understanding, and gradually, the family found a new equilibrium, one that was built on mutual respect and shared experiences of forgiveness. As Naomi continued to strengthen the bonds with her family, she remained cautious and mindful of the past. She set clear boundaries to ensure that the old dynamics of manipulation and hurt did not resurface. Her approach was firm yet loving, promoting a family culture where open dialogue and mutual respect were paramount. This careful nurturing paid off. Over time, the family learned to interact in healthier ways, supporting each other's personal growth and celebrating each other's successes. The transformation was palpable, not only in their interactions but also in their individual lives. Victor and Anna, inspired by Naomi's example, began to make amends for their past behaviors and to contribute positively to the community, each in their own way. Naomi's influence extended beyond her immediate family. Her story, shared publicly through her foundation's outreach, inspired other families to seek healing and reconciliation. Her family's journey became a testament to the power of forgiveness and the possibility of renewal, offering hope to those who believed their familial fractures were beyond repair. Empowered by her newfound perspective and motivated by her public apology, Helena dedicated herself to acts of service that went beyond mere atonement. She became actively involved in Naomi's foundation, sharing her story with others as a cautionary tale and a beacon of hope. Her involvement added a profound depth to the Foundation's mission, illustrating the transformative power of remorse and the human capacity for change. Helena's volunteer work, particularly with families dealing with issues of manipulation and control, was impactful. She brought an authentic understanding of the dynamics of abuse, offering not just apologies but practical advice on recognizing and combating manipulative behaviors. Her contributions were well received, lending credibility and a raw honesty to the Foundation's programs. This new role as a volunteer was healing for Helena as well. It allowed her to give back in a meaningful way, to feel useful and connected to a community, something she had not truly experienced in her earlier years of isolation and control. Her commitment to redemption was not just about seeking forgiveness but about making tangible contributions to society, about leaving a legacy that countered the damages of her past. Under Naomi's leadership, the Foundation grew in scope and impact, becoming a key resource in the community for addressing issues of abuse and recovery. Naomi used her personal story and her family's journey towards healing as powerful tools for advocacy and education. The Foundation organized workshops, talks, and support groups that helped individuals and families navigate the complexities of abuse recovery. The success of the Foundation was a reflection of Naomi's vision and her unyielding commitment to her cause. The programs developed under her guidance were innovative and tailored to meet the diverse needs of the community, helping many to find the support and resources needed to start their own journeys of healing and empowerment. Naomi's work with the Foundation also served as a personal testament to the power of turning one's painful experiences into a force for good. She became a respected figure not only within her community but also on a larger scale, as her foundation set a precedent for how to effectively support abuse survivors with compassion and practical aid. As the Foundation celebrated its 5th anniversary, Naomi took a moment to reflect on her journey, from the depths of despair and abuse to her rise as a beacon of hope and a leader in the community. The event was filled with speeches and testimonials from those who had been helped by the Foundation, each story a reminder of the impact of her work. This reflection was both humbling and validating for Naomi. She realized how far she had come, not just in terms of her personal healing but in her ability to affect change in the lives of others. The Foundation was her legacy, built on the principles of resilience, forgiveness, and unconditional support, values that she had clung to even in her darkest times. As she listened to the stories of those she had helped, Naomi felt a profound connection to each of them. Her past, once a source of immense pain, had become her greatest strength, fueling her mission to ensure that no one else felt as alone and powerless as she had once felt. The story culminated in a heartfelt scene during a large family gathering at Naomi's home. The house was filled with laughter and conversations, a stark contrast to the silence and tension that once pervaded it. Helena, now a regular part of these gatherings, took a moment to express her gratitude to Naomi, her voice choked with emotion as she acknowledged the incredible gift of forgiveness she had been given. Naomi, surrounded by her family, felt a deep sense of peace. She realized that her journey of forgiveness had not only transformed her life but also the lives of those around her. She had broken the cycle of cruelty and despair and had paved the way for a future built on understanding and compassion. As the family shared stories and memories, the atmosphere was one of genuine affection and newfound respect. Naomi's story, a poignant tale of suffering, strength, and redemption, was a powerful testament to the human capacity to overcome even the deepest wounds through the healing power of forgiveness. That's the end of the story. What did you learn from this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Leave a like and don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notification, so that you'll be notified whenever we drop our next videos. Also, share this video to someone who might be interested. Thank you so much for watching.